All right, Shalom. I want to start out by giving our praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Quadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to all the Akim out there pushing the word in sincerity and in truth. And we just got a quick lesson. We just gonna really go into a couple of biblical origins and really go into King Solomon. All right, because I got this one article. Me and the brother Kabash, we have this one article going into King Solomon gold. And you have these different, historians, which I'm gonna go into this historic paragraph where these different individuals, they believe that they actually found where King Solomon Island was, where he actually received all the gold in the early 1500s. All right, because that was one major thing that a lot of explorers and you had a lot of people that financed these different trips to figure out where did Solomon go for his immense amount of substance, which you read in First Kings, what's that, the 10th chapter? Okay. Speaks about how he had agreements with Hiram Abiff, and he had him as his man, so to speak, his for different trade agreements, so to speak. He actually would actually do these different voyages and would get an immense amount of resources, and Solomon would actually pay him or give him compensation due to his travels. But you have these different individuals, like I said, in this specific area in Solomon's Island, which is located by Papua New Guinea, and they believe that they found where Solomon Island is. But we know where Solomon actually received, or where he went to receive that immense amount of gold and substance, and that's the Americas. All right, tells you, which we're gonna go into, like I said earlier. It tells you about the year-and-a-half voyage. And it took 3 years, year and a half there and a year and a half back. All right, and we got a quick point also, which we're gonna go into, was Christopher Columbus. He actually knew that the Northern Kingdom dwelt in these quarters, and that King Solomon actually came to the Americas. All right, not in this area in Papua New Guinea or in Asia. He actually went to the Western Hemisphere. All right, so I'm gonna read this historical records. But it says, historians record that the first European to come to Solomon's Island, Alvaro de Medina, in 1568, gave the archipelago its name because he believed this area of the South Pacific was where King Solomon got the gold he used to build the Temple of Jerusalem. So you had these different individuals that was making an inquisition and getting finance, or actually financing their trips personally, to actually discover where Solomon got all this gold from. All right, and that was a big thing when you read these scriptures. Solomon had a lot of gold, amongst other natural resources. It speaks about peacocks and different things of that nature. All right, so they was trying to basically land upon the jackpot and see where that treasure chest was located. So it says it's named because he believed this area of the South Pacific was where King Solomon got the gold he used to build the Temple of Jerusalem. And this isn't where King Solomon got the gold. He may have actually got gold from this area also, but the main place where you read in the scriptures that's talking about the Americas, all right, says the Spaniards did search for gold during their exploration of the islands, but somewhat fruitlessly, such that they left and never returned. Over 400 years later, the search for gold is still on. In a span of less than 5 years, the Solomon Island government had announced issuing more than 60 prospecting licenses and 2 mining leases, one of which the country's only operating mine, Gold Ridge Mining Limited. Another company is prospecting for minerals on Vangunu, the largest in the chain of islands that make up the country's biggest lagoon. And these people are foolish, man. Because they believe that they're going to actually find out where Solomon got all his gold, when you have these devils, the so-called white man that has all these different gold in his possession. The so-called white man, through the Spaniards, the French, the British, the Dutch, the Portuguese, they already came to the Americas and ransacked this place, man. The different gold rushes in California and all throughout the Americas and in Canada, all right, and all throughout these different islands. They already extracted the silver and the gold. You watch those different movies, 1492 in particular. It shows you how they had the natives actually, mining and tilling the earth to really extract the gold. And they basically, they knew that the natives had the gold, man. They seen the regalia that they was wearing. They seen the, the jewels that they had in their ears, their nose rings and different things of that nature, and they seen that was some pure fine gold, and they actually took it from them and actually told them, where did you get this gold from? And after they gave the location, they made all of them actually, dig for that gold and basically give it all up. And if they were to keep a portion, and actually, if they found, a specific amount and actually keep a couple of, coins in possession, they would chop their hand off, chop their arm off, chop their leg off, sometimes chop their head off. All right. And this is just another, point that really goes into the same thing. It says, when was the Solomon Island discovered? Archaeological evidence suggests that the Solomon Island had been inhabited since 1000 BC. European penetration began in 1568 when the Spaniard Alvaro de Mendana, exploring from South America, spent half a year in the island. See that? And these different explorers, they read these scriptures, man. They actually do it, like the scriptures say, they do a diligent search. If you could get that in Psalms, with that Psalms 55, how Esau is wiser than Daniel, and the heart of each and every one of them is deep. So they actually go into these scriptures. They actually have their think tanks, and they have their assemblies, and they go into the Greek, they go into the Hebrew, they go into the Latin. They look at these geographical markers that's located in the scriptures. They know they figure out where the city of David is, the city of Solomon, who these different historical individuals are. That's why one of the major things that Esau did during the time of the Greeks was set up all these different museums. All right. And in these different museums, starting off with this, the one place, Alexandria, Egypt, that's a major hub was a major hub for museums, and it's still, the whole world in these times now is, big places, for museums now. But during that time of Greece, they would actually extract all the ancient scrolls, the artifacts, the biblical, texts, certain things that were held sacred. Some things that the major public didn't have access to, and they would store it in all these different museums. All right, and they would actually act upon those different things. That's why it was in the turn of the century, so to speak, they would actually pay for these different people to explore these different places, like this, for instance, which we're going into, Solomon Island. They would pay for the voyages to South America and North America and all these different places to mine and to figure out where all this different gold that King Solomon and these different men of the Lord actually were receiving all this substance. You got that?
This is Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 3. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee.
And it says, behold, the scriptures say that thou art wiser than Daniel. Who was that talking about? The so-called white man. The white man, through his wisdom and his witchcraft and his diligent search of going to Egypt, going to the European areas, going to Israel, going to Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and going to all these different historical areas all throughout the Middle East. Esau knows where the land, the Garden of Eden was located and all these different things because he searched these things out. He looks at the proximity of the scriptures. He looks at the different cities, which cities was north, and the land of Jericho. And on all these different routes, he studies the year patterns. He studies the areas where actually Abraham went after he left from, his father Terah?
Ur and Chaldees.
Yep, Ur of the Chaldees. He knows these things. The scriptures, that's why it says the heart of each and every one of them is deep. And they don't just know and just keep it in their mind. They actually finance these trips. They pay big money, to figure these different things out.
Yeah, because the Lord's building that point, the Lord put in their minds to do that because the Most High said in Revelation chapter 20 that when they had a great wound, that great serpent had a great wound. He was healed. Yep. He was healed, and when he was healed, like the apostles go into, they had the Renaissance. Then before the Renaissance, they started. The Queen of Spain started sending voyagers over here to America to search for gold in different places in the world, just like the brother was going into.
Yep, and just like I had said earlier, and these different individuals was heavy in religion. Catholicism was a major thing, and which it is even unto this day. I can't even say back then because Catholicism is one of the biggest religions, man. But back then they were very in tune. If you were a king or a queen of a particular province, you would actually exercise your money to actually receive more funds, so to speak. All right. That's why they actually paid this individual, Cristobal Colon or Christopher Columbus, you know, in the English translation, so to speak, to actually make that trip to the Americas. Because even prior to Christopher Columbus, you had ancient American maps, all right, where it shows you North America and South America, all right. They knew that this land was actually it was actually lands over here, all right. Contrary to popular belief, they try to say that Christopher Columbus was trying to go to Asia or whatnot. He was trying to sail eastward, so to speak, and he actually landed in America. No, that's bullshit, man. You know, Christopher Columbus was a learned man, and we're gonna pull up this clip, you know, to show as such that he actually studied and he was very inquisitive. So I'm just gonna roll it right now.
Why do you wish to sail west? To open a new route to Asia. Asia is the richest kingdom, the land of spices and gold. At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent, the journey takes a year, or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians. There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea. The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite. Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands. Can't you be so certain? The calculations of Toscanini, Mahalati, Esdras, is a two. So what first? 2 minutes. Already you're a dead man. For telling the truth? Yes. You are burning people for less. The man you're about to confront has no emotion.
Yeah, and see the proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
And that goes back, which, you know, brothers that's been around for a minute, brothers know, you know, this movie Christopher Columbus 1492, which is a very good movie, you know. And one thing that he said that actually stuck out to me was, you know, an area that's unknown. Now, at that time, where they would say certain things was unknown, it was unknown to the general public. The masses of the people, they didn't know the things that the elites knew. All right, the elites, they kept a lot of, even unto this day, they kept a lot of things away from the masses of the public. Even unto this day, like I said, look at the Illuminati, the so-called rich. They don't tell they secrets. That's why they're known as the secret society.
That's why they call it the Illuminati. Because they are the enlightened ones that people don't know. They don't have no knowledge about that the elites have.
Mm-hmm. And that's the proof right there. Because even during that time, you had a select few that actually knew that America actually existed on the Western world. But you had majority of people that didn't even know that you had a whole continent, so to speak. You had North and South America in the Americas. They just thought it was just the Eastern Hemisphere. They didn't even know it was a whole nother hemisphere. All right? And we're going to go into it in the scriptures because our forefathers knew these things, man. And they actually acted on these things. Solomon, he had a navy that actually came to the Americas. So you could get that.
This is 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verse 41. But they took, well, I can start from 40. We'll start 40.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, come on. 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king.
Because when you go into the history, the Israelites, they was in captivity. All right. And Hosea was the king at that time. All right, they went in captivity under Assyrian captivity because you had the northern and the southern kingdom wars after the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Israel split. And through those different wars, they had actually divided themselves. You had the northern kingdom and you had the southern kingdom, and you had the Assyrians that came down and cracked down upon the Israelites and snatched the northern kingdom and put them in captivity against their will. All right, and then you had the southern kingdom that went in captivity under the Babylonians. One time period was around 700, roughly 720 BC, so to speak, and the other was around 586 BC was the start of the Babylonian captivity. All right.
Come. It says Salmanasseh, whom Salmanasseh, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land.
Keep going.
But they took this counsel among themselves.
So in this time frame, all right, it said they took this counsel among themselves. Keep going.
That they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
All right, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. They would break off. Keep going.
And go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
And what's that further country that never mankind dwelt? America. All right, that's not talking about over here in the Eastern Hemisphere. They went to the Western world. They got up, you know, they actually grabbed their families, they got up their merchandise and the property, and they had their voyage and they naval routes, and they actually coasted all the way to the Americas. All right, because they had a map system. They obviously knew where to go. They weren't ignorant of the voyage, so to speak. You had the top noblemen of that time in the Northern Kingdom, because in everything is classes. All right, they had the noblemen in the, just like you know, at that time you had what Christopher Columbus and the top individuals that knew the different routes. All right, he just spoke about the best routes to take to go to this land. So even during that time, you had the noblemen that actually got together and conspired, so to speak. The word conspire means to breathe together. And then they said, and what was the conspiracy? It said that they would come together and go where never mankind dwelt. All right, keep going.
And go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land.
See that? So they would keep the law, statutes, and commandments that they wasn't able to keep in their own land, so that they could be emancipated and freed from the captivity of the Assyrians. And that's why even when you had these different historians that actually came to the Americas, they actually seen full proof that these were the Israelites. They said that they actually wore the fringes. They wore the garments with the the border of blue. They didn't eat pork. Some of them knew the Shemai. All right, you had Israelites always going off, following heathenistic customs, but a lot of them was on point, man.
Yeah, the book of James is there.
History of the Native Americans, and they was convicted by the Spirit. And even Christopher Columbus and the Spaniards, they actually spoke about how they were a noble people. They were very wholesome and pleasurable to be around. The women actually were in order at that time. They actually read to the children the book of the law and gave them different wisdom, just like it tells you in Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, to actually read these law, statutes, and commandments from your generation to generation. And they were actually doing that. And these different even these different lands and these different the different names of these natives in the land, they actually had Hebrew names. That's why the term Mexican goes back to the Hebrew word Mashiach, which means the anointed ones. All right, so you could get that in Kings.
Come. First Kings.
Yeah. First Kings
10.
Okay.
First Kings chapter 10, verse 14. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in the 1 year was 603 score and 6 talents of gold.
So it was 666 talents of gold, which is a lot of gold that Solomon received. And then it was how long? In 1 year, just a year. So they basically was in a heavy area mining for that gold, man. Hiram Abiff and his league of men, his confederacy of men. Keep going.
Okay. Besides that, he had the merchantmen and of the traffic of the spice merchants and of all the kings of Arabia.
So he had commerce even with the Arabs. So he had merchandise and commerce coming from the Arab lands. He had commerce coming from Egypt. It speaks about the Queen of Sheba and the verses above. All right, all throughout Europe, you had because it speaks about the navy of Tarshish. Tarshish is in Spain. And then you had the Americas. That's why Solomon had so much money, man. Solomon was like the Mansa Musa of his time. All right. When you read about Mansa Musa, he was one of the richest men in his time. They say his net worth was around $400 billion. All right. Nobody was touching Mansa Musa's net worth. And at his time, he dominated the whole known world. And that's how Solomon was. He dominated. There was nobody that was his contemporary at that time. Everybody paid tribute unto Solomon. All right. Keep going.
Come. And the governors of the country. And King Solomon made 200 targets of beaten gold, 600 shekels of gold, went to one target.
You could jump down to that, to the, what verse is that?
22?
Yeah, verse 22.
No, verse 21.
Okay.
And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold.
So everything he had was gold. That's why it said like 666 talents of gold. He had so much gold that he had, gold ware, gold drinking vessels. All right. Possibly gold tables or gold crowns. Hey, the Queen of Sheba, she came to Solomon's temple and came to where Solomon's dwelling quarters was, and she mistook the servants for Solomon, man. Decked out. And you know that Queen of Sheba, you know how the Egyptians were. They actually, were people that actually embellished and draped themselves in silver and gold. That's why even the pharaohs in Egypt, after they died, they would actually die with a lot of silver and gold. They would even go as far as killing their servants because they believed in the afterlife. They believed all their gold and their wealth would actually go to them in the afterlife. That's why you have these coffin texts and you have the Book of the Dead and these different books of remembrance, so to speak, because they believed that in the afterlife, all the gold and all the immense amount of treasures would carry them to the next world. That's why they would be embalmed, all right, to preserve themselves, and they would actually, inside of those different coffins, they would actually put rubies and gold and pearls. So she knew about gold and treasure. It wasn't like she was a poor woman. And she came to Solomon and she was like, God dang, she seen the servants and she thought that was Solomon.
Yep.
So that means he had a lot of gold. All right. And that shows you how much gold this devil has, man. When he came here and he robbed these different places in America, South and Central America, Puerto Rico, all right, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and these different areas, Cuba, Cuba and like I said, in Mexico, Panama, Ecuador,
California.
Yep, California, Nicaragua, all throughout Georgia and Canada. Where's all this gold at? This devil, he's confiscated. That's why it says that this devil swallowed down these treasures and he gonna vomit them up.
He stack his gold as dust,
Mm-hmm.
heap of dust.
That's right.
You can't even count the dust of the sand of the sea. That's how much gold he got.
Yep. Keep going.
Come on. It says, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold.
Keep going.
None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon.
See that none was of silver. So he thought of silver, which silver is a lower standard of gold, but he thought that silver wasn't even worthy of being in his quarters, man. Strictly gold. You got this nigga that came out years ago, Trinidad James, which that was fool's gold, man. You put that fire to that gold, he probably got them, all that shit'll burn up, all that bullshit on his neck. This was the gold, like the scripture said, the golden wedge of Ophir, top gold. It's even classes with these different minerals. When you look on a mineral scale, you'll see that they have different formats of gold. All right, where it's like you got yellow gold, so to speak, and white gold, which when it's mixed with the allodials, when it's mixed with certain material, and this was the purest of the pure gold. You could jump to the point with Hiram, because I just wanted to hit the main point on that.
Come. Verse 22, for the king had a navy of Tarshish.
Yep, Tarshish, which Tarshish is in Spain. So it says the king had a navy at Tarshish. Keep going.
With the navy of Hiram.
With the navy of Hiram. So he had an agreement with Hiram, and Hiram was his navyman. Hiram and the Hamites during that time, which I actually have a little bit on Hiram. Just gonna read just to give a layout on who Hiram is. But it says Hiram the first. Hiram the first goes back to the Hebrew word Harawam, which means highborn. It says was the Phoenician king of Tyre according to the Hebrew Bible. His regnal years have been calculated by some as 980 to 947 BC, in succession to his father Abibu. Hiram was succeeded as king of Tyre by his son Baal Esser the first. Hiram is also mentioned in the writings of Menadar of Ephesus, early 2nd century BC, as preserved in Josephus against Apion, which adds to the biblical account. According to Josephus, Hiram lived for 53 years and reigned 34. So there's different, so this individual, Hiram, he's known in history. It goes into his genealogy. It goes into the time frame that he actually lived. It goes into the accounts where he's mentioned. And outside of the scriptures, and we actually going into the major account, which which the scriptures speak about. Who Hiram was, what was his job for Solomon, because they was in cahoots, so to speak. Keep going.
Come. It says, once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks.
Yeah, and this they went to the Americas, which I have this Americas map, which is finna pull up. It's pretty small, it's, looks minimized or whatnot. But they would actually come from the Middle East, and they would actually go from the Horn of Africa, and they would actually go to these different lands for the immense amount of gold and treasures, peacocks, like it says. All right, silver and hard assets, so to speak, and they would take it, extract it from these different lands, and they would come back to Solomon. All right, and Solomon would, whatever type of agreements they had, Solomon would pay. All right, keep going.
Come. It says, so King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom.
See that he exceeded everybody for riches and for wisdom. Everybody in the known world looked up to Solomon. All right. And I just want to segue to a whole nother point, which I wanted to go into, because prior to, this whole, world, so to speak, this whole world's perception of how everything it is, you had Pangea, which that word pan is all, so to speak. Everything was at one at that time, which if you go into the account in Genesis, because after the flood, everything got broken up. And that's why Solomon, he knew about North, Central, and South America. All right. David, he knew about these different things. All these different known men, they knew about these things. Even the Asians. All right. That's why even prior to Christopher Columbus, you had individuals like Leif Erikson, the Vikings. You got Chinese maps. You got all kind of different maps where it actually shows America located within those maps prior to 1492. All right, when Christopher Columbus, sailed to the Americas. All right, and just like I said, we went through Second Ezra and we went through Kings, where it both goes into different voyages. Like Solomon and his navy actually went. Solomon, which was of the southern kingdom, all right, from the tribe of Judah. He actually financed it, and you had the northern kingdom, which was the 10 tribes that actually came. All right, you got that?
Come. This is Genesis chapter 10, verse 25. And unto Eber were born 2 sons, and the name of one was Peleg.
Mm-hmm. And the word Eber in Hebrew which is actually interchangeable with Hebrew, because Hebrew in Hebrew is Ibaryath. All right, which means from the past. Loosely translated, scholars say from beyond, but it's really from the past. So this individual, Eber or Ibar, he had a son named Peleg. Keep going.
For in his days, was the earth divided.
For in his days, the earth was divided. All right, because prior to the flood, you had all the lands come together. They was all compacted at one. And after the flood and the immense amount of rain and the water, all the different lands and the bodies of lands, they actually broke up and separated. All right, and they actually streamed away from each other. All right, because that's why even what historians see, and they know, you could actually take all the different pieces of the land and you could put it together as like a perfect puzzle.
God.
And I just got one quick point, and this is under answeringenesis.org. It says, what happened in the days of Peleg? Matter of fact, I'm going to jump to the top. It says, did the continent split apart in the days of Peleg? It says the strong geological and biblical support for the idea of Pangea and original supercontinent. It appears this land mass rapidly broke apart during this global flood by the process of catastrophic plate tectonics. The movement of the plates also formed the ocean basins and mountains in today's world. And that's not something that's far-fetched, all right? You got an immense amount of rain that's actually separating the tectonics of these different lands, all right? And it speaks about how long did it rain? What, 40 days and 40 nights, if I'm not mistaken? All right, and it flooded the whole known world. Land's going to separate during that time. You got to think about an earthquake. You watch these different movies where earthquake actually shakes up the world.
And the mudslide.
Yeah, and then the mudslides actually, because that's actually separating the land systems. A mudslide is actually, regraphing the land as you know it. So just think about when a flood occurs. Mudslides occur during floods because actually a lot of water is actually digging and going into the soil, so to speak. It's not as stable as it was. So after an immense amount of flooding during the time of Noah, these different lands separate. All right. It says in Genesis 10, 2/3 of the way through the genealogies of the post-flood patriarchs, we read in verse 25, to Eber were born 2 sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. All right. It says, and I'm going to jump. It says the same phrase for in his days the earth was divided also appears in the repetition of the genealogical entry in 1 Chronicles 1:19. All right. And that's the main point. It's a lot of information on this what's the word I'm trying to find, on this website, excuse me, under answergenesis.org, under the time of Peleg, and under the time of the continental shifts or drifts apart. But the main thing we wanted to really go into was really just King Solomon, all right, and shows where he actually landed to. The apostles and elders, they always go into this, they went into this years ago, and we just really wanted to weigh it out. Because you had, like I said earlier, how these different individuals, through the so-called white man, whether it was through the Dutch or the Spanish or the French, to look for the different gold that Solomon actually had, and he was actually hunting down for, So, you had anything you wanted to bring up?
No, that was it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, too, what you can look on YouTube, it's an old movie, which me and the brother were just now looking at. It's like a Solomon's Mind type of movie, where it actually shows you how these different devils was hunting. They was going through these different Hamite lands, whatever the Watusi, so to speak, whatever Hamitic tribes, and they was actually, trying to figure out where King Solomon's, substance was located. All right. But just like I said, it was located in the Americas, and that's how we know who the Northern Kingdom is. It's full proof, full evidence. Yeah. All right.
To you people, it's like on your point too. To you people that's not including the 10 tribes, which are the so-called Latinos and not Native Americans, you're going off, man, because the scriptures prove that they are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
That's right.
They will receive the blessing. Plus, the Bible is real too, also.
Yep. And it says also in 2 Ezra, before what was that? 2 Ezra was 13. It speaks about how Yahweh Shah is gonna come and redeem those people. Those are the Gentiles that Yahweh Shah spoke of in John, where he said, "These sheep I have, which are not of this fold." All right, and that's even historical because you have the Mormons that actually know for a fact that the Lord actually came to the Americas. All right, so we want to end it by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and